Over the years, I always had this question in the back of my mind. It wouldn't go away. Why were the Ten Commandments still kept, all except the fourth? Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. I started to delve into the arguments for both sides in more earnest. It was clear that in the Old Testament the Sabbath was the seventh day of the week, but what about the New Testament times? And why would God change it? What finally convinced me that the Sabbath was God's chosen day, even for today, was not in any of these articles, nor in any of the usual scriptures. All those served as backup, but what finally convinced me was in Genesis 1, and not what I had heard or read anywhere in all my searching. I came across a comment mentioning that the world will only exist for 6,000 years. That intrigued me, as I had not heard that before. It was based on the week of creation in 2 Peter 3:8, which states, "One day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day." And Psalm 94, "1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by." So, correlating the creation week with each 1,000 years of history, I thought, well, if the 6,000 years idea is right, I wonder when Jesus came to earth. Various ideas have existed as to why he came when he did. Did he come because the Roman Empire made the spread of the gospel easy, with a peaceful time and extensive road networks everywhere? But if that was so, why did Jesus not come now? With the internet, the news could go so much faster. I found that Jesus came around the year 4000 AM, that is 4,000 years after creation. So I looked in Genesis to the fourth day to see what happened then, if it had any correlation with his coming to earth. On the fourth day, God created the sun and the moon as signs to separate the light from the dark. That just hit me. It just was wow. Because that is exactly what Jesus did. He came to separate spiritual darkness from spiritual light. And he came right on time, in the fullness of time. He came within the fourth day, not into the fifth day. The fifth day, fish and birds were created, just like the followers of Jesus would receive the Holy Spirit and multiply like fish as his followers were fishers of men. This idea that Jesus had come on the fourth day was just the most amazing find to me. And after realizing this, I searched and found that the idea was actually not new. In fact, during the years before Christ came, the Jews were looking for the Messiah to arrive during that specific 1,000 years because they understood the 6,000-year plan of God, and according to the days of creation, the Messiah should arrive in the fourth day. The arrival of the Messiah on the fourth day shows God's timeline is tied to the days of creation. So I started to think more about the significance of the days of creation. Maybe there's a whole lot more to those days than I had realized. In Genesis 1, we see the unfolding of creation. Each day is a wonderful new addition to the day before, and with each day, the level of complexity increases. From matter to land and water, to plants, to animals, to man, we think that God stopped creating on the sixth day. But the seventh day was God's greatest creation. On day 6, God made man. On the seventh day, God made a way for man to walk with his Creator. This day was the culmination of creation, the creation of man walking in fellowship with his God. This is far more than interacting with another human. It is another level of creation entirely. This was the sole purpose of all creation. This was God's heart, his greatest gift, the final act, the day that was to never end. All other days of creation are stated as, "And it was the evening and the morning of the third day or the fourth day," but the seventh day has no time boundary like the other days. This day was to be a delight, one of pure joy and enjoyment of all that God had made, but most of all it was God's fullest expression of his love to us, to give himself. It was his wedding day with mankind. The Jewish people consider the Sabbath as a wedding ring. If someone is keeping the Sabbath, then they are married to God. This idea of marriage is throughout Scriptures, God longing after his people who have been unfaithful to him. Repeatedly, God pleads for his people to return to him, to follow his ways, and to keep his Sabbath. It is as though God is in pain, yearning for his people to remember his Sabbath. Why did it matter so much to him? maybe because this was his greatest gift, and it had been rejected or forgotten or misunderstood. Breaking the Sabbath was a major reason for Israel being divorced by God and going into captivity. Isaiah 58:13 says, "If you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath and from doing as you please on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honorable, and if you honor it by not going your own way and not doing as you please or speaking idle words, then you will find your joy in the Lord." Ezekiel 20:21 states, "But the children rebelled against me. They did not follow my decrees. They were not careful to keep my laws, of which I said, the person who obeys them will live by them. And they desecrated my Sabbaths." Ezekiel 22:26. "Her priests do violence to my law and profane my holy things. They do not distinguish between the holy and the common. They teach that there is no difference between the unclean and the clean. And they shut their eyes to the keeping of my Sabbaths, so that I am profaned among them." And Amos 8:4 and 5 says, "Hear this, you who trample the needy and do away with the poor of the land, saying, when will the new moon be over, that we may sell grain, and the Sabbath be ended, that we may market wheat, skimping the measure, boosting the price, and cheating with dishonest scales?" For these people, the Sabbath was a burden, something to simply endure until it was over, so they could get back to their own life. But the Sabbath was not to be a burden. Rather, it was the heart of God, an expression of his deepest love for us. That is why the Sabbath means so much to him. When Jesus returns to set up his kingdom, we will enter the millennial reign of 1,000 years, the seventh day of creation. God cares about the Sabbath because it is part of his grand plan from the very beginning, a plan that lasts throughout time and into eternity. It was not just for a certain ancient people before the Messiah came to earth. Israelites were God's messenger to tell the world what God wanted everyone, including the Israelites, to know. The Jewish leaders missed the Messiah because they were expecting an earthly kingdom for the last 2 days, last 2,000 years. The time of this world is divided into 4 sections: 2,000 years before the Torah, 2,000 years with the Torah, and 2,000 years of the Messiah, followed by the yet-to-happen 1,000 years millennial kingdom, of which Jesus talked so much. God cares about the Sabbath because it is part of his grand plan. God did not change it to Sunday. If you understand the week of creation, you realize he would never do that to his master plan. The fact that Jesus entered history at exactly the right time on the 4th day tells me that God is keeping right on schedule with his plan. When I first was considering all this and came to the conclusion that the Sabbath is the 7th day, it really unnerved me. To think that the vast majority of those who profess Jesus worship on Sunday, I walked around slightly stunned. What else could be wrong with what I had simply accepted for so many years? God has not changed his original 7-day plan. Each day was a build-up toward the greatest act of creation, and that greatest creation was not man. It was the Sabbath, the spiritual union of God with man. God did not simply take the 7th day off and do nothing. God did not create heaven and earth as a place for man to live. He created heaven and earth as a place for God to live with man. This Sabbath is the culmination, the heart of the plan. If each day of creation was something of higher order than the day before, then the final day was his ultimate masterpiece. No wonder it is so important to him.